What is that system and how is helping people or how you're helping people get to the financial freedom level?
Yeah. So think first about what is the average person every day doing with money when it hits their account, right? It flows into, they get income from some source, whether it's their business or W-2 or wherever it comes from. It
Mhm.
comes into an account. Typically, and this is not everybody, but typically, that one account is a holding place and it gets used for everything. Am I right,
Mhm.
Vicky? It goes out for the mortgage, the payment for the mortgage, your car payments, your credit cards, your daycare bills, everything. And they're all getting pulled out at different days, at different times. And so you put the money in, it goes out at all these various times. And all of a sudden you're like, how much is actually left over that I
Mhm.
can start to invest? Well, I don't know because on what day? Is it this day? Is it that day? Did someone make the last payment for my kids' college, tuition, or is that next month? You start having all these questions. It creates confusion, which means we don't keep as much of the money that we could to start investing because we just don't know how much is actually left over.
So let me ask you a question. What if everything you have been taught about money, freedom, and building wealth was incomplete? Today's guest is here to challenge the traditional playbook and introduce a new path, one that does not rely on Wall Street, stock market swings, or trading time for money. I am joined by Joey Mure, co-founder and partner at Wealth Without Wall Street. He has helped thousands of business owners and families rethink how they create passive income using a proven framework called PIOS, and the results are life changing. Joey, welcome to the Wealth Wife Show. I'm so glad that you're here with me today.
Oh, I love being anywhere there's a wealth vibe, Vinky. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And today our topic is really, really interesting. It's about passive income. So the topic is passive income revolution, the PIOS framework that changes lives. So let's get started from the very beginning, like rewriting your wealth playbook. So I'm going to ask you this question. What was your personal moment of realization when you knew the traditional wealth path wasn't it and you needed to build a new model?
Oh, Vinky. So I'm going to take you back to a painful moment. Okay.
Mhm.
So I told you before the show, I'm married and I have 5 daughters. I'm holding up the number 5 if anybody's watching us on video. And you can pray for me after this episode because it is both a blessing and a challenge to have 5 daughters. But it is one of my greatest joys to spend time with them. And when I was in the mortgage business, this is many years ago, I was doing really, really well. I was making over $300,000 a year. But what I didn't realize is in the midst of that, had no freedom. And what I mean by that is I would go on vacation with my wife and these daughters, and I would tell them, you guys go on down to the beach. I'll be right behind you, right? Just go ahead. I got to take this one more phone call.
Mhm.
And what do you think happened, Binky? 3 hours later, I am walking down the boardwalk behind the beach house, and they're walking up the same boardwalk, and their faces say everything. They're disappointed. They've been left out to be by themselves. Even though I'm on vacation with them physically, I am mentally miles away. And the reason was because I was the only asset at work. I had none of my money at work creating passive income that was going to free up my time. Because let's be honest, if you could pull up right now your calendar app on your phone, right? You hold it up, I'm holding it up, and you've got all these boxes, these little color coded boxes on your app. And the question that I want to ask you is how many of those boxes did you place on the calendar because you wanted to be there and with that person? And how many of those boxes were placed on your calendar because you had to be there, whether you wanted to be there or not? That is the difference that kind of struck me like a bolt of lightning is the traditional financial system is rigged. It's created to keep you at work, to be industrious for someone else's business as long as possible. Like the idea of retirement is to be taken out of service
Mhm.
sometime in your 60s and 70s. Well, your life is passing you by today. My daughters wanted me on the beach today, not 30 years from now, right? And so something had to change for me, Vicky, and I didn't have the answer right then, but I knew what I was doing was not getting me closer to the goal.
Mhm. So, what was your goal and how did you do it?
Well, my goal at that point was like, okay, having more income doesn't necessarily mean more freedom. I need more freedom. I want to be able to spend the time when my daughter, who at the time was 5, I was taking her to preschool and she said, Dad, you going to pick me up from school today? My answer was no, I can't because I have to go to work.
Mhm.
And do you know that 5-year-old, they get older and they don't want me to pick them up from school. They want the time with me today. And
Mhm.
so I knew that that's what I wanted more of is more freedom to say yes or no, not the requirement to say no because I have no option. And and what that meant for me is I read a book in 2009 that changed my whole mindset. They said retirement is not the answer. That's a scam. The idea of putting work in for 45 years and then hoping that you have enough money to live on for the rest of your life is a scam. You have to take control of your finances today. You have to actually make your money. You have to become an investor. You can no longer push off money into Wall Street and hope that somebody cares about your money more than you. That is never going to make sense. And so these things I was reading in this book, I was like, yes, I this is what I need to learn. But I had to get started. And so then in 2010, I started down that path of implementing what was in that book. And that started my wheels turning and saying, okay, I get it. I have access to cash. Now what am I going to go do with it? And then I had to become an investor, which is a whole nother story.
Yeah, I would love to hear that too. How did you become investor? Because that's the biggest hesitation that people have because it's something unknown. And you mentioned very well, like you wanted to do something, but you read some books because you had that thing in you that great, okay, I wanted to do something for my family, for my kids, right? So you did that because there was a why, strong why are you doing
Right.
that? And a lot of time is kind of overlooked, right? By a lot of
Yeah.
people and they kind of struggle how to get there or I am not enough to do that kind of thing. So you did that and you became investor. So I wanted to hear that. How did you become investor? What was the first investment look like, and how did you get that confidence to be here today and share
Yeah.
your story with everyone?
Well, I'll give you the end of the story first because I think that tells you, hey, you should listen to this guy. So Russ and I actually started sharing that Russ is my business partner at Worth Without Wall Street. We started sharing our podcast in 2020 for accountability purposes, what our personal passive income was, because we were like, we're sitting here telling people you should be doing this, but what are we doing? And we
Mhm.
need to lead by results, not just by speaking. Because as you know, Vinky, there's a lot of people out there that can talk a big game about building wealth or passive income, but they don't have anything to show for it. And
Right.
I didn't want to be like that. And so we started like reporting this every month. And we started with 2,500 a month being between the two of us as our passive income monthly. Fast forward now, we're reporting over 50,000 a month. And it's because we learned some pretty key things. The first thing that we did, just in terms of investment, is that I told you I had a mortgage background. So when I got out of the mortgage business, I had all this access to cash because I had been implementing the system from that book I read. And people started saying, hey, I need a private mortgage because I don't fit the traditional box of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, like the traditional mortgage world. And so I used my underwriting skills, my ability to see what a good mortgage loan looks like, and I underwrote these deals and I provided a private mortgage for these people, 10%, 15-year notes, and they paid every month and it had collateral and all the things that I really like because my investor DNA, like my profile, loves stability, consistency, and lots of collateral because you never know what's going to go wrong and you can't control all the variables. So that was the first entree to become an investor, and it worked out great. The second thing is as I started doing that, it started to dawn on me like there is an investor DNA. And this is a takeaway for whoever's listening to us, Vicky. You should not invest in the things that Joey or Vinky invest in just because they work for us,
I
right?
agree 100%.
I mean,
Mhm.
people, how many people just say, "Hey, Vicky, what's the ROI on your last investment? I just want to put money in there because I'm just chasing ROI."
Mhm.
Right? That's the wrong approach because you are created in a certain way. Like God created you to have certain key things that you see the world through a specific lens, right? He's made you to have certain pros, certain cons, like strengths and weaknesses, and he's given you resources and experiences that are unique to you. So why would you think you need to invest like everybody else? You need to invest in the things that line up with who you are. And most people don't even know this exists. But what we determined over time, Vinky, is that we needed to have a tool to help people figure out what sort of investor am I and what sort of things align with that. And so we created it. It's based off of the DISC profile, if you're familiar
Mhm.
with that,
Yes.
personality profile. And we
Mhm.
take those results and we put it against, I think there's 16 different passive income streams in a matrix that tell you these are the things that would line up with you and these are the things you probably want to stay away from because you're not going to really love this about it or love that about it. And so, anyways, the point I'm saying is you need to make sure you're investing in the right deals that line up with you. And then from there, it's about experience, right? Learning as you go. And that's the thing we can kind of dive into. But our education system tells you if you ever make a mistake, oh, that's the worst thing that can ever happen. But in the
Mhm.
in the game of investing, it's part of your education to try some things and maybe they don't work out the way that you wanted or do some things and oh man, this is better than I expected. The experience is the education, and we can't shy away from, man, things didn't go perfect. So
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So I know I read in your bio, you also talk about the Wall Street mindset. So can you break that down for us? What does that look like and how does it hold people back? Because
yeah.
especially in today's market.
Well, I'd say part of the Wall Street mindset is to make you think that you're not the person that should be entrusted with your own money, right?
Mhm.
Wall Street has tried to convince us all that we're not smart enough. We don't have the ability, we don't have the experience. So we need to give our money through some vehicle like a 401k or IRA to an advisor who is apparently going to babysit our money and help
Mhm.
it grow better than we would ourselves.
Mhm.
And guess what? They have convinced us that this is better for us. There is nothing else in life, Inky, that goes like that, right?
I agree.
Right? If
Mhm.
I said, you know what, I really don't know much about working out and taking care of my body, I'm just going to leave that up to somebody else. Is that ever going to work for me? Absolutely not. I may not understand what I need to do, but I know that this is my body. I have the responsibility and the stewardship to take care of it, or it's going to break down. Nobody else is going to do it for me. The same is true with like your kids. You're holding that new baby, and I don't know how many kids you have, Vinky, but I'm sitting there holding my first daughter, and I'm thinking to myself, there's no chance I know what to do to raise this kid, right? There's way too many variables at play, lots of unknowns. But do you think I was like, you know what? I'm just going to hand this off to somebody else and you raise the kid and you're going to be better at it than I am. Heck no, I didn't do that. But I said, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to invest in the time it takes to learn how to be the dad that I need to be. And I'm going to make mistakes along the way. But somewhere down the road, I am 100% the best dad for that child, right? Your money is the same way, and Wall Street is trying to to separate you from your money, and they're trying to keep it for as long as possible. So they're selling you on, hey, retirement. It's to your benefit, man. You're gonna just sail off into the sunset when you're 65 or 70, and you're gonna have this mountain of money that you'll just be able to live like a king off of, and just enjoy retirement because you haven't enjoyed your life as much. But now, retirement is when you're gonna enjoy it. Well, guess what? You don't have your health the same way you did when you're in your 20s and 30s, right? In your 60s and 70s. You probably aren't really going to travel because travel is way more expensive than it is living at home. And you've been living scarcely to put all this money into this mountain that's supposed to, take care of you for the rest of your life. And not to mention the variables and the volatility in the stock market are going to always make you question, am I taking too much away? Am I going to run out? Is this enough? Should I keep putting more money in or should I stop and start taking withdrawals? Like there's so many things at play and they know it. And they've designed it in such a way that keeps your money locked up for as long as possible. And by the way, when you pass on to the next world and you're able to pass down whatever money's left over, those vehicles that Wall Street has helped you set up are the worst means to pass on wealth to the next generation from a tax perspective and from various other reasons. So you got to rethink the way that money works. You got to take more control and you got to be smarter about how can I create freedom today? Like
Okay, so
retirement doesn't work.
yeah, no, let me ask you this. I mean, all these good things, whatever you said, I love your analogy, the baby analogy, and also your body analogy, because you take ownership there. You think I can do it.
Right.
So why do people do not have the same mindset about the money? Why do they don't have the same relationship with money? Like they have the relationship with their baby or with their body or with the food. Why they fall into this Wall Street trap, whatever you're saying that. So let's dig a little bit deeper. So
Yeah.
share with us your experience, what you have learned in your experience, and then what we can learn from there.
Yeah. I would say I'd love to hear your thoughts as well, because I know you see this every day. But the main things that jump out of the page to me is lack of education. Like
Mm-hmm.
people have no idea, right? There's our education, globally is not designed to help you become more independent. It's to help you become more dependent, right? To become an industrious part of society, which is really not aligned with taking control and being more autonomous, right? And then the second thing is just fear of the unknown, fear to make a mistake, which also, I believe, comes from our education world, right? You get on a scale of 1 to 100 on a test. If you don't have anything, if you don't have 100, you feel like you've fallen short, right? I didn't make a perfect score. I have to have perfection. That's what I'm, always trained to think. But guess what? There is nobody I know who is really wealthy who hits everything out of the park all the time. In fact, they're happy to share with you that they've made multiple mistakes. You know, you and I were talking about before we started the show that there's multiple investments I've personally made that I've lost money in because they were bad investments. One of them became a Ponzi scheme after 3 years of paying out. Like that, I had to learn that the hard way. But you think I'm going to do my due diligence a lot stronger the next time? Absolutely. But that's part, the experience of investing is part of the education. And I think some people are just afraid to make those mistakes. They don't want to fail. And I don't know, what would you add to that, Vinky? Because those are the two main ones in my mind, but there's probably others that you've experienced.
No, I agree with you 100%. And then the other thing I would say, I think this is all the conditioning and our relationship with money. I come from a very spiritual background, but as well as a background where I heard people talking about all the time, money does not grow on trees, right? So that kind of stays with you from the childhood, and then from the childhood, you've been hearing that. And our parents, they were just like always telling us, go to school, get good grades, be a A-grade student, you got the potential, make tons of money, get a white collar job, and stack the money under the mattress, right? No financial knowledge, zero financial knowledge, right? So
Right.
that's what we grew up and that's what we started doing, get a white collar job. I was in the corporate world myself for 20 years and just climbing the corporate ladder and then always just trading time for money. But
Yep.
it took me so many years, so much knowledge, so much education, and so many experiences to expand my perception, to understand beyond myself how things work, right?
Right.
So once you learn how to put your money to work, you start feeling that freedom, and then you start multiplying that. That's the
That's
only
right.
thing I want to add to it. But I know you have created a very good system, PIOS framework, and you have helped so many people. I wanted to ask you about that. What is that system and how is helping people or how you're helping people get to the financial freedom level?
Yeah. So think first about what is the average person every day doing with money when it hits their account, right? It flows into, they get income from some source, whether it's their business or W-2 or wherever it comes from. It
Mhm.
comes into an account. Typically, and this is not everybody, but typically, that one account is a holding place and it gets used for everything. Am I right,
Mhm.
Vicky? It goes out for the mortgage, the payment for the mortgage, your car payments, your credit cards, your daycare bills, everything. And they're all getting pulled out at different days, at different times. And so you put the money in, it goes out at all these various times. And all of a sudden you're like, how much is actually left over that I
Mhm.
can start to invest? Well, I don't know because on what day? Is it this day? Is it that day? Did someone make the last payment for my kids' college, tuition, or is that next month? You start having all these questions. It creates confusion, which means we don't keep as much of the money that we could to start investing because we just don't know how much is actually left over. And that's not the way profitable businesses work, right? Profitable businesses have a P&L. They live off of it. They have the profit and the loss. They know when the income comes in, they know what the expenses are, and they know what's left over. We don't operate that way in our personal lives a lot of the times. And so what we do is we help people to start getting a lot better visual of what is actually left over so that what we can start to store it in the right place. If we start storing our money in the right location, not in 401ks, not in IRAs, not in the equity in our homes, not in paying extra towards debts every month, like some of the financial gurus out there that are telling you that's the way to freedom. Guess what? Debt freedom does not equal financial freedom, right? You have to have more passive income than monthly expenses. But you pay off all your debts, you still have a lot of expenses that are due every single month. Living expenses do not go away. So my point is you have to start storing the money in the right locations. In our book, we help people to start implementing what I learned in 2009 is the infinite banking concept. Starting to put money into the right location that now I can access at any time. I can start to leverage it into passive income assets or businesses. And then those businesses and assets start to pay me monthly. Well, I don't allow those dollars to come back into my income account. they go into my we call it a hub, an investing hub that now it continuously, perpetually feeds itself because now the money goes in, it goes out to assets, and it comes right back into that hub. And it stays on the right side of the ledger versus the left side. The left side is the rat race, right? Where most people get stuck. And man, I wish I could just, show you one of the things in our webinars that explains how this all breaks down. But the key thing that we do is we help people to see that the system that they're operating in is broken and is keeping them in the rat race. So we have to have a different system to have a different result. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So when you say infinite banking, so is it like a life insurance that you're talking about that people can
Yeah.
get into and they can leverage that, the infinite banking piece from there and start investing? Okay.
Yes. If people have ever read Become Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, he was our personal mentor. He
Mm-hmm.
lived here in Birmingham, Alabama. We had lunch with him on a regular basis, and he taught us the power of a system like this. When we started implementing it ourselves, like I said, in 2010, after
Uh-huh.
4 years, I was like, this is the way that people need to know exists. And even though I didn't know what to invest in at the time, I knew that the storage place for that money had a new home.
Mm-hmm.
And so, anyways, we started to become experts in that space. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when we started to have more and more opportunity to invest because we had, Vinky, the thing I am most passionate about is when people have access to cash, now they can become financially free. Without access to cash, I believe it's the number one hurdle most people are living under and they don't even realize that's what's holding them back.
Mm. So is it called what, IUL or something like that, right? If I remember that.
We do not use IULs. That's an Index Universal Life policy
Uh-huh.
because Nelson Nash is the founder of this, and he says don't do it. He says you use very specific whole life insurance policies that are designed for multiple, like maximum cash value. And when we do that, there's a whole, I mean, there's a lot of details behind this, Vicky, that I don't want to like get people lost in the minutia. But ultimately, when you design these things properly, they're gaining guaranteed tax deferred rates of return. They're giving you access to the capital in the means of leveraging the cash value that is being grown in those policies. And then from there, you actually can grow two things at once. Okay. So, what I mean by that is when I use the word leverage, means that the cash value in my policy is never hindered. It's always growing on a guaranteed and a tax deferred basis. But when I leverage money, I'm actually taking the insurance company's money, not my money out. So I'm borrowing against it like equity in my home.
Mm-hmm.
And so think about that. If I have an equity line and I go and I invest in, let's say, one of your syndications, I now have the syndication at work and the equity in my home is still at work, right? The value of my home is going to continue to rise, assuming that the values keep rising. Well, it's the same way with my very specifically designed life insurance. And so I want to have both the life insurance growing and the outside investment growing at the same time. So my dollar's doing two things instead of one. Once we really harness that, it becomes a no-brainer to get us to financial freedom faster than if we just use a savings account, for instance. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm very familiar with the product actually. So let me shift the gear over here. You created the system, and what did you find? Which step do most people struggle with, and how do you help them push through that part of that process? So basically, I'm talking about your system, and then your system is based on infinity banking. That's what you're mentioning, right? And
Right.
then okay, they get the life insurance and whatever they saved over there they can leverage that because you can get loan against that, right? And then
Correct.
growing here in your life insurance, and you're getting the interest over there on
Correct.
your original capital, and whatever you took out, you're investing in whatever deal, whatever we call, you're making money in that. And when you're paying the interest, you're paying yourself back. That's the beauty right there, right? You're not paying anybody else because whatever the loan you took and whatever the payment you're making, you're just basically paying yourself back. So, which is to me is like a win-win. But we wanted to
Right.
hear from you, where do people struggle when they are going through this process, and how do you help them?
Yeah, a couple of hurdles that come across the way. Number one is they don't really know what they're saving or investing because they've just been blindly funding things like 401ks, IRAs, and that money is gone before they ever even see it,
Mhm.
typically. And so they have to get their head around, man, I don't have any money left over at the end of the month. Like that's the biggest thing. People say, I don't have a whole lot of extra money that I could fund this, let's say this infinite banking with you. And we say, well, wait a minute. How are the things that you're putting money in helping you get to financial freedom today? And they'll say, well, I got this 401k. Well, tell me, let's just go through this really quickly. When I put money in a 401k, does it actually help me increase a passive income today, or does it help me decrease a monthly expense today? Because if the formula is passive income greater than monthly expenses, that's an objective formula that I can work under, right? So if I'm going to put money in something, it has to do one of those two things. When I put money in a 401k, Vinky, does it increase passive income for me?
Mhm.
No, it doesn't.
No, it does not. Yes.
Right, because it's just going into a holding place that eventually 30 years from now, 40 years from now, it starts to come back to me if I take withdrawals. But it doesn't create a passive income today. Well, then does it reduce a monthly expense when I put money in my 401k? And the answer is no. So it doesn't increase passive income. It doesn't reduce a monthly expense. Why am I putting money in it?
So
It's
you can save on taxes.
well,
You
that's what people say, right?
That's what people think. But the thing is, you lose the value of the money too over the years,
Well,
because the inflation rate is so high and whatever percentage you're making in your 401k, that does not equate at all.
Well, people say I'm getting a match from my employer, so I want to that's 100% return. That's free money. I'll say, well, how much do they have to pay you to keep your money locked up for the next 30 years? How much did they have to pay you to
Hmm.
keep you from having your time back today?
Hmm.
That is the true cost.
Hmm.
And most people are not thinking about that. They get disillusioned or they get blinded by, oh, I'm getting this free money from my employer. Or two, I'm getting a tax deduction today that is actually helping me, or a deferral of taxes, I should say, that is helping me. So that's why I keep doing it. But if those dollars are now locked up and I can no longer use them to get myself to financial freedom today, those are the most expensive dollars that I could ever spend. And so it takes a mindset shift, Vinky. It's not so simple as just say, oh, well, you're doing this, just do this. It's like I have to unlearn the things, which by the way, to unlearn is a much harder than to learn.
I agree 100%. Oh my God.
Right?
I just feel like you're speaking my language. It's always, you're 100% right. It's always the case whenever you wanted to do something because you're going to fall into same set patterns. And in order to get rid of those patterns, you have to unlearn everything.
That's right.
Basically, everything, whatever you learn. And regarding the 401k, people are like really, really, I would say, religious about 401k. I have to have 401k first job, starting the 401k day one. It's okay, I say that. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. But the thing is, you can roll over a portion of it. You can have the flavor of both as long as you have the wealth building strategy. Every strategy is good. And I'm not even saying like one is better than the other, or do one versus other. You can do both, but still you can, leverage all the resources that you got. But still, a lot of people don't do that. And you mentioned really good thing about mindset. So how do we train our mind to see things that is not obvious?
Well, I think it goes back to that first thing that I shared with you.
Mhm.
I'm at the beach and I'm not with my family. And I think there's something broken about this system, about this process,
Mhm.
about the go to school, get a good education, get a good job, make a lot of money, and retire when you're 65. That is the narrative that
Mhm.
we've learned. It's been ingrained, and but the results do not actually fulfill you the way that you anticipated,
Mhm.
you know? And so I think the only way that the reason why we don't help everybody, Vinky, is because everybody cannot change the way they think. They don't have a big enough why or a big enough challenge to what they've always done to say, I need something different. But the people that are where I was and they say, this isn't working out for me, right? I am working myself to death. My health was failing, by the way. I mean, all these things were going on. And I'm like, this doesn't add up. But for the person that is in that position, they're now open to whatever sort of alternatives there may be. And they say, teach me, right? Let me learn. And the person that can be taught can get out of that mindset. But the person that doesn't have a reason to, they're just going to keep head down and keep doing the same old and expecting a different result. And eventually one day they may wake up and be like, yeah, I need to change something.
That's true. That might not even happen sometimes, you know.
Right. Seriously.
You just sleepwalk through whole life, you know. So let me ask you, earlier you were talking about, create your own script. Like it's not like that Winky's investing or Joe is investing. I have to do that to like follow somebody else's script. So I'm going to ask you this question. So what is the danger of copying somebody else's script or strategy without truly knowing what aligns with you?
Well, I'll tell you a great example is number one, if it's not a good fit for you, once you get into it, and let's say it requires more of your time than you anticipated, all of a sudden you feel really like confined. You feel really kind of almost in a prison yourself. Like I can't, if I just get out now, I may lose all this money, right? So you get into something that may not be as passive as you expected, or two, I'll use the example of my business partner. He got into a rental property back in 2007. And it was just because, hey, his friend told him this is a good deal. It's going to actually go in value and you're going to be able to flip it out, within a couple years. And sure enough, it just was a long-term rental in a college town. And he was familiar with the college town. And so he did it. And he's the type that he wants to be involved in something. He wants to have his hands in something. He wants to actually be influencing it. And Vinky, a long-term rental, you can't do any of that, right? They get a long-term rental in there, renter. They pay monthly. You get the $100 to $200 a month net cash flow, and then something breaks 6 months later, and you have to pay for it to be fixed, and then you do it all over again. He's like, this is boring as sin. Like, I do not want to be stuck investing like this. If this is how investing is, I'm just not going to really get that involved. And
Mhm.
he really put it off on the sideline for years. And then he realized, wait a minute, I can't keep doing that. But he lost all those years because he kind of equated, oh, well, this is what investing in real estate's like. I don't want to be a part of that. When there's all sorts of other ways that you can invest in real estate that are more active or more, hands-on or advisory, influential that he could have been doing, but he just didn't know. And that really slowed down in my opinion, education and his ability to produce passive income faster because he kind of, just wasn't that interested in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I agree with you somewhat because I think everybody is in it for experience, no matter what you do in your life. So if the experience is not good or is it not aligned to your expectations, you're gonna hesitate next time. You don't want to do it, right? So
Right.
that's what happens a lot of time. And now with the passive investors too, that's the reason I always say to my investors, I provide the white glove service because for me, my investors' experience is the utmost, right? If they didn't get the experience, whatever they're looking for, So the next time comes around is complete no. So to me, that's everything in this life, and it's applicable in each and every field of our life.
Right.
Whatever you're doing, you wanted to create the experience for your family, for yourself. That's the reason you were looking for financial freedom from the very get-go, and you did it. So I wanted to ask you this question regarding your PIOS, right? If I'm saying the name right.
Hmm.
So can you share with me like any experience or story, someone who went through your PIOS framework and that completely transformed their life or their business? What was the
Yeah.
outcome? Mhm.
Yeah. So we had a gentleman who is an optometrist who
Uh-huh.
came through, and he actually joined our mastermind at one point. And he is already, you would say, man, this guy's financially successful, right? He's made a lot of money. He's actually sold his practice.
Mm-hmm.
And you thought, man, he's got all the money. He knows what to do. He was still not an investor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there is a big difference between somebody who has money and somebody who's an investor. They're not
Mm-hmm.
the same person,
Exactly.
because there's an education, as you know. So in his case, he was able to then take some of that money, create this passive income operating system, which put more money into his control that he could access, and he knew the flow of money as it was working through the system. I wish I could show you a diagram, but I don't have it with me right now. And he then started to engage in the education part of what we're talking about. And we call
Mm-hmm.
it the passive income lab now, but it's where you get hands-on. You start learning, what does a pitch deck look like? What are you looking for in a pitch deck? What are the things in a PPM that you need to steer clear of? What are the like red alerts or green flags or red flags that you need to be aware of? What's your investor DNA? How do you build a buy box so that when you look at 10 deals, you can say no to 9 of them immediately because they just don't fit what you're
Good
trying to
call.
accomplish, right? And so
Nice.
he started to learn all these things. Well, get fast forward, he's created financial freedom for his family, but now he's even gotten to the point where he has gone to his other doctors and said, man, I'm investing in this deal. And they're like, can we invest with you? And so he's become somebody who has actually added value to his community of other people, of other passive investors. And he did that just by getting clarity, putting together a system, and becoming an investor. And that's like the whole playbook for us is thinking differently, putting the system in place, becoming an investor, and then seeing where that takes you. It's a place of abundance for sure instead of scarcity.
Yeah, I know. I really like that. I think it really matters. If it really matters to you, you're gonna do something about it because you need to step out of that pattern, that box, to create a new life for yourself. But the first step is to get aware, to have that awareness that I am in a box or I'm in a bubble, right? So if you're not seeing that, you're not there yet. So let's have some fun. I know we are out of time, but I'm gonna ask you 5 questions. It's our
Okay.
rapid fire round. You're going to answer it only in one word or one sentence. Okay. Are you ready?
Okay. I'll
Okay.
try.
So we're going to do really fast. The first question is index funds are passive income strategy.
False.
Buying life insurance for cash value leverage.
100% do it.
Owning your own business as the ultimate asset.
The most wealthy people own their own business.
Paying off your mortgage early.
Never do it.
Rentals versus lending. Which do you fund first?
I am more of a lender versus a renter.
Thank you, Joey. I think that was fun. Okay. It was, I mean, you have shared so many golden nuggets with us, so much clarity. And then you gave us so much perspective. I can't even talk today. Sorry. Let me say that again. I have a little sore throat, so I'm not sure. I'm just like, my words are getting stuck here. So let me say that again. So thank you, Joey. You brought such a clarity today, and then everything was like golden nuggets that you shared with us. So I'm going to ask you one last question. How can people reach out to you?
Well, we've shared a bunch of different resources and things like that today. If you ever want to contact me or get access to those, go to wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/wealth vibe, wealthwithoutwallstreet.com/wealth vibe, and all of those things can be accessed through that link.
Thank you, Joy, once again. And to our Wealth Wife family, if this sparked something in you or made you question the way you have been building your financial life, stay close. There's more coming, and we are just getting started. There's going to be multiple more episodes in the Wealth Wife show. So stay tuned, stay intentional, and keep building your Wealth Wife. Until next time, bye for now. Thanks again, Joey.
Oh, likewise. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to the Wealth Vibe Show. If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. And don't forget your free gift. Download the Busy Professional's Guide to Real Estate Investing at loombainvest.com. See you next time with another amazing guest and another powerful conversation.